Good afternoon. This is the Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. It is Thursday, November 9th, 2023. It is 2:36 p.m. This session is set to go until 3. We'll go ahead and expand a little bit to allow the time because we started a little late today. This is a hybrid meeting. We're at 3000 Pacific Avenue Southeast, room 110 for public virtual attendance. You may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. To my right is Vice Chair Ty Menser. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. Also in the boardroom, we have interim County Manager Robin Campbell, as well as Assistant County Manager Rob Gelder. And we also have some guests joining us here today, and we'll go through introductions. This is the Lake Management District Update Briefing. So if we'll start with Barry, and then we'll move down the line. Go ahead.
Barry Halverson, Lake Lawrence Lake Management District.
Doug Garman, Long Lake Management District.
Brian Muirhead, Patterson Lake Management District.
Gary Whitley, Offutt Lake Management District.
David Deal, Patterson Lake Management District.
Perfect. So passing it to you, Rob.
Yes, thank you, and my apologies for the tech. Kind of trying to work a couple different platforms at the moment, but Commissioners, thank you for your time this afternoon. Definitely wanted to provide the board with an update on the activities to date relative to prospective transition as to how the county may support the lake management districts. But I did want to start off with really trying to address, I think, some things that we may have heard either in public comment, et cetera, just really trying to lay the framework that the work that has been happening to date has really been about the support of the LMDs, not about the other protocols, et cetera, that are in place to make sure that the lakes and the management thereof are done in a responsive way. And just wanted to reiterate for the board that in many ways, Thurston County has some of the most robust safeguards in place relative to lake management. A lot of counties don't have the same gradation of support and refinement. As you know, the state law and basically the Department of Ecology reviews and approves the tools or chemicals that can be used per label instructions in any on land as well as in the aquatic environment. But Thurston County chose to take a step further to refine what chemicals can be used, and we have systems in place to do that. We have our integrated pest management policy. We have a PVMAC, a Pest and Vegetation Management Advisory Committee, which is a subcommittee that reports to the Board of Health that also looks at all of those recommendations that come forward about those uses, but also the prescriptions that are adhered to as part of that management process. That then ultimately goes to the Board of Health for approval. So I just wanted to touch base on that first, and then would like to share my screen if I can. Just for a way of kind of focusing our thoughts today. There we go. It's a little delay. So again, this is just an update. So we wanted to share the progress to date made on exploring a new potential support model, answer any questions that the board may have. I've been mostly facilitating the conversation, so your experts are joining us at the table today as well. And ultimately, in order to keep moving forward, we'd like to request the board's direction to finalize the transition from the historic model of 1-to-1 of administrative and versus a direct technical support.
When are you expecting that to take place?
With hoping for today. The briefing materials were asking for that type of direction. If the board is ready to do that, but that was our request for today.
To give direction today and then put it on a AIS or?
Yeah, I guess it would, to go into an AIS and for a formal action.
Have we solved all the concerns of, can they make these deadlines so it won't delay?
We are working our way through those, so that's that's why.
That's what's going on here.
We're being joined by folks. So just so you know, after the board gave the last direction to move forward and explore this, we started meeting every 2 weeks to do some transition planning. That includes myself in representation of the Lake Management District, the 4 Lake Management District steering committees and their leadership. We now have Stuart Whitford, who has joined those meetings as well as the identified point of contact within environmental health. And then he will have a couple of staff that will be working with him also. So the LMD leadership have been putting a lot of hours into the creation of standard operating procedures, or SOPs, which you have as part of your packet today. We won't delve into every line of those, but that is for your reference. The idea is that it would ultimately replace what we had been talking about before relative to the administrative rules, because they go into a much greater level of detail. But the whole idea there is to create the standard operating procedures so that there's consistency across all the LMDs, pulling sample RFPs, contracts, and other reference materials that would be helpful for them. We are currently applying for a couple of grants for Pattison and Offutt LMDs. Those applications will be going in. If not today, they will be going in by Monday. And those are specifically to receive funding, hopefully from the state for the development of their IVAMs. Stuart, coming on as the point of contact, mentioned that the standard operating procedures would replace the admin rules. It really goes to define as the intent of the admin rules, but probably even on a greater level, those roles and responsibilities of Thurston County, the LMDs, and more importantly in this case, the role of the contractors as well, and what those expectations are. Establishing step-by-step processes and instructions for various activities, whether it's a request for proposals, development of contracts, payment of invoices, how the county and the point of contacts would actually be supporting the LMDs in that administrative capacity. And I think also a really important point to remember or to think about is that the standard operating procedures are really a living document. It is a starting place that's trying to cross every T, dot every I, but it's going to evolve as we learn more and continue to move down this path. And just as not expecting you to be able to read this, but this is just a snapshot of the table of contents from the SOPs, that you have that document as part of your materials today. And with that was just really the introductory kind of remarks, but I would ask anyone else that's here today that if you have particular thoughts that you'd like to share with the board, or if the board has questions that we can help answer for you.
Well, I guess my concern was that question. If we've got these concerns met about being able to make deadline and stuff on in a short transition period.
We're working on it.
We're working on it.
And I will tell you that Mr. Gelder and staff has been more collaborative and transparent than I have seen in the 15 years I've been associated with the Lake Management District. And every issue that we've identified, there's been almost immediate response to try to resolve it. Likewise, every Lake Management District and every Lake Management District Steering Committee member has been involved in the process. We have not provided a document to Mr. Gelder or the staff that has not been vetted by every steering committee before we did it. And although there may not be total agreement on everything, I will say that we have had a consensus on everything. And that is a big leap forward.
And our committee, as our LMD team, has been meeting in the weeks in between the meetings with Mr. Gelder. So we're on this every week, and sometimes doing 5-6 documents a day to respond Mr. Gelder's deadlines that he needs for things. And I would echo Barry. I've only been involved in LMD for 2 years now. But this has been a sea change in terms of operation, cooperation, cooperatively working. It's just been wonderful to work this way.
And also kudos to all the staff, whether it's Public Works, environmental health, et cetera. They have helped me pull together all of these resources, and a great example of how the LMD steering committees have jumped in. So we have a vegetation management contract that, we have got one that needs to be continued. At the same time, we're trying to go down a path of consolidating those RFPs. So it's consistent, we could have one tool, one contractor potentially for all of them. And so we have a draft RFP that we hope to get out in the next several weeks. But I got it, it's now with them to sort of say, okay, will you look at this and see what other things that we may have missed, et cetera, get their consensus opinion, that input, then we finalize it and continue to move that process forward. So it has been collaborative in that regard.
Just to say, for those of us in the community that are working these steering committees now, to work together, the 4 lakes together as a group and building on the great experience that Barry and Doug have, really makes it easier for us at Pattison and at Alfred Lake to now go forward in implementing process and procedures that will really, I think, benefit the lake. And I think, as Commissioner Edwards has said, benefit all the people of the county who use our lakes.
I really don't have any questions at this point in time. I am so thrilled, I don't even feel animosity in the room. I mean, that is such an improvement. That's all I can say. I don't know a lot about it, but thank you very much for everybody kind of trying to make this work for the lakes. That's kind of where I'm at, so.
Questions?
What are we being asked to do today? I don't really understand.
So if the board is at a point where you're ready to provide sort of that final direction to continue in this path of basically finalizing a different role for the county in terms of offering administrative support versus that direct technical support. And so we've called it a contract model, but there will still be a role for the county in this when it comes to that administrative support along with contracted
Particularly in the
providers.
area of budget and procurement. As Ms. Campbell talked to us about a month ago when we first started this process.
So this document, I didn't quite understand who wrote it and where it's going and what it means. Like you said, the LMDs did it.
We were told to take the county administrative rules, incorporate them into this document and expand upon it.
Okay.
To basically put together an off-the-shelf book that any lake management district can take and know what they need to do and how they need to do it. That's why it's a step-by-step. If you take a look at what we've done so far, and there's a lot of work yet to be done, and we're working on it every day. And we're meeting every week to discuss what we've done during that week to improve upon it. And then we're providing the updated copies to Mr. Gelder every 2 weeks. And getting the staff's input on that and answering questions that we have about it.
Is there a point at which you'll be like, we think we got it and then we have to approve it, or
But we're
is this your document and?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. And there will be a signature cover sheet for this, where we expect that each lake management district is gonna sign off on it. And that we would expect the Board of County Commissioners or the chair to sign off on it. We don't think we're there yet, and I'll tell you why. We just got the RFP for the contract 3 days ago. We've been working it very diligently. We have a meeting tonight with all the LMDs to go through what we've done so far. Our expectation is to get that to Mr. Gelder, not by Monday, but by tomorrow morning. Okay. So that you have a chance to take a look at it before Monday, because we've had a lot of discussions with Mr. Gelder and Mr. Whitford, at our last meeting about what they can do and what they can't do and what we need to do and things that we have to put in the RFP to have the contractor do because we're losing our aquatic resource specialist. So there's other things that we've got to ask them for. We're incorporating that into the RFP, and we're gonna be discussing that tonight, such as consulting services, lake surveys, polygons for treatment locations, all those things. So that we aren't missing a step that your integrated pest management plan and the PIVMAC, the Pesticide Vegetation Management Committee, wants according to county policy. So we're incorporating all of that.
And further, you can look at this document as the Bible, the resource Bible for LMDs. I can tell you, being the neophytes here, 2 years ago, starting to try to become an LMD was a lot like an Easter egg hunt. There was no central place to go for information about what to do. So you'd find this piece and talk to this person, you gotta do that, and oh, by the way, there's this. And so it was incredibly complex to assemble something because the RCW is not very clear. If someone wants to be an LMD next year, they would have this SOP document and they would know what they need to do if they become an LMD. So it's spelling it out and it's gonna be a great help.
I suppose even from another jurisdiction somewhere could plagiarize this.
I've already had input from other jurisdictions.
I don't know if, Rob, did you say you had a meeting with these folks recently?
Oh, regularly.
Every 2
so
weeks.
Every 2 weeks. Mhm.
Within the last week, we had a correspondence about legislation that's been proposed.
Yes.
And you were taking something out. I talked to
Yeah.
the county manager about that, and
Yeah.
we seem to agree that, yeah, that we, and, oh, you asked that it be put on our priority legislation?
Yes, sir.
We're limited on what we can have our person work on per se, not that this isn't important, but we have many items, not many, but, quite a few items on there that we're supporting.
Right.
It's just that we're not up there lobbying every day. We stay pretty busy right
And we
here.
don't expect you to do
Yeah,
that.
but
That's what we expect.
We're gonna be with you.
Right,
It
but
sounds like we're
we
gonna be
need
with
the
you.
county's acknowledged support for the bill.
Yeah.
You've all three told us that you're not gonna be against it. But we would like you to not just not be against it, but actually support it we'll put together the letter, by signing the letter that I can take to the bill sponsor. That may be all that you have to do. But you also realize that you have a WASAC convention next week in Spokane, which is a great opportunity, we feel, for you to help communicate to WASAC how important this bill is to the lake management districts across the state. There's 24 of them, and 16 of them have let me know, and 8 of them have put input into that bill. That all of those issues, other than the one we're taking out, okay, they want to see there.
Can you, how many you said 24?
There's 24, sir,
And how many counties does that involve?
7,
7 counties have a lake management district?
yes.
And since you're on this topic, the one issue that we talked about, that I'm curious of what input you've gotten is on that issue about the parcel, and then there's a development and you can add people in without a vote.
Correct.
And I just, is that?
3 of the LMDs have that problem right now.
Okay, so you have broad support for that piece?
Yes.
We currently in our renewal have $6,000 worth of revenue we're not gonna be able to get because people have either changed the use of their property and we can't update it to the new use, or somebody has subdivided their property and now it's multiple parcels instead of one, and so we can't add them because,
They're getting the benefit, but
They're
they're
getting
not
the-
participating.
that's right, they're not
And
participating
most
financially.
of the lake management districts across the state have this problem.
Okay.
And they all support that. The 16 that have actually there are 8, actually 7, because one of them dropped out, but there are 7 that have said, Barry, we want to support this, but we like the way we've got it right now, and we don't want to disturb it. And by the way, but what they're talking about is that their county is hands-off on the LMDs. The LMDs do everything. And they don't want to upset the apple cart by making any commotion with their county commissioners. You understand that?
Well, we're making headway, it looks like to me. Where's the Valium at?
Yeah,
This is
we are
unusual.
making headway. Right now, the bill is being rewritten with the draft and the changes that we've recommended to you to incorporate that, and we should have a hard copy by next week, and I'll get that to you as soon as we do.
We are gonna be over in Spokane, next week, just so you know.
The one,
So maybe
yes, and that's
staff,
what
if
I'm
they get
talking
it.
about, but King County was one of the ones that pushed back on the same issue that you pushed back on. Why? Because their LMB supervisor, Chris Knutson, is a supervisor. He's the one that's charging them FTE. So, I mean, I had 2 conversations with Chris, and I explained to him why we were doing it. He says, well, Barry, he says, I take care of Lake Geneva, and I also help take care of Lake Sammamish. And I don't have anybody else in my shop that does that, so I do it. And I said, okay, Chris, I understand, but you understand why we're doing this? And he says, yes, I do. But that will satisfy King County's issue with this thing too, from what I understand. Haven't got that confirmation yet.
I do want to, though, call out the fact this is a big change for the LMD steering committees who are volunteer, organizations that will be taking on more tasks, right? We are part of the SOPs is really narrowing down what services the county will be providing, but then also clarifying what roles the steering committees will be providing as well, whether it's, their meeting support, whether it's website, whether it's newsletters and mailings, et cetera. That's a sea change in many ways. And I know that there are concerns that, do we have enough active volunteers? Do we, wanting to make sure that there's enough to go around and it doesn't keep falling to just a few of the residents around the lake, so.
If I may add to that, Rob, I think one of the other benefits we see of this new process we're in is there's a lot more of our money that we are asking our communities to put into the lake management district that we can actually apply to treating the lakes. A lot less overhead costs, because we're doing most of the work.
And we agree that some people on our committees are nervous about how much work we want to take on. By the same token, we want to do that. We are in favor of that. We think it's an improvement to the process, and we think all the lakes will benefit.
And I also think the collaborative working relationship that we've had with all 4 LMPs, basically over the last 2 years, has provided a group of people that can share information, provide support. And where one lake may not have the expertise to do something, another lake does, and they can help provide that support. And that's happened. So that there is some synergy with having the lakes working together. The other thing I would like to add, since that letter was brought up, email that I sent to all of you, there were 3 issues on there. One of them, Doug and I talked about just a couple days ago, was the about $29,000 for interfund costs that is currently on the budget line that you need to make a decision on during probably the first week of December, and then a final decision on the 15th of December. We really feel that support is needed for the next 2 years. We would really appreciate your support in that endeavor. And we say that from the standpoint of this year, we're gonna be charging an administrative rate. And to have that on top of paying the interfund costs for the last 2 years would be an additional burden on at least Lake Lawrence and Long Lake, not necessarily the 2 new lakes. Just throw that in there and appreciate your support. We're giving it everything we've got to try to make this successful.
As you know, I sent each of you an email as a result of my steering committee being extremely concerned about the speed at which we were going and their ability to fill the holes and whatnot. And the work that we've been doing, I'll say pre-work, because we're working on the RFPs and contracts and a lot of the stuff that will shorten that time period and have it done prior to the first of the year can really help to alleviate a lot of that concern. Committee, and I'll be talking, we have a special meeting tonight that
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Doug? What's gonna alleviate the concern?
because all of the pre-work we're doing, we're already doing the RFPs, or at least getting the documents. We're already doing the contracts, we're already and revising them, going back and forth with staff and us and so we're getting work done that 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, we figured we'd have to January 1 scramble to do it, and it would be physically impossible to get our work plan done if we start January 1. It's just, one, because we don't know what we're doing. I mean, I shouldn't say it that way.
Yeah,
We
you
do
don't-
know,
First
but
time
don't
we've done
say
it.
it's the
that.
first time we've done it, so there's gonna be hiccups. Well, we're doing the hiccuping now instead of January 1, which is a great benefit.
We knew there was already going to be a transition in terms of departments, right? And then in terms of trying to streamline and simplify, already started to put a lot of these pieces in place in terms of
Another great example is the references for sample forms, for RFPs, for contracts, for prescriptions. The SOP will have all of those samples in there. So if an LMD has to do, the new LMD has to do a prescription, we can look at a sample of a prescription without having to do a public records request and wait, 6 weeks to get one so we can start working on it. So that's really the pre-work that Doug's talking about that's gonna facilitate this process.
I'm relatively new to the process compared to my colleagues at that end of the table. But, I see this as this is essentially an operations manual. In a very transparent way, it says how we're gonna work with staff, how we're gonna work with contractors, and how are we gonna work with each other we're just gonna work with each other, but those relationships are outlined in procedurally, consensus-based decisions amongst us and what we'd like to have, how we'd like to work together. And so it's not a rule thing, and that allows us to be flexible going forward. If we find a hiccup in February, we can fix the hiccup, but we'd like to also get you guys to sign off and say, good work, and keep on going. And with that, I think you asked Commissioner Menser, what are we looking for out of this briefing? What we're looking for is your commitment that this is the direction you want us to head, and the SOP is the direction you want us to pursue. We've already put a lot of time into it. We're planning on putting a lot more. Two, that we already know, according to what we've heard, the budget is going to move from Public Works to Environmental Health on the 1st of January, so that is a done deal from our perspective. We don't see that as being a decision point that you need to make. It seems like it's already been made. And third, because we have a representative here that I've heard many times talk, and Mr. Trowbridge has talked to me several times, I just want to put some of the public's angst at ease. The two new LMDs, they're gonna have an integrated aquatic vegetative management plan process that they're gonna have to go through over the course of this next year. Whether they get grant funding or not, they're gonna have to do that. And that is the process where public and the community from all around the lake gets involved in that process and puts input into that process. And that process and that plan is what tells the lake what they need to do to manage their lake best in all aspects, wetlands, littoral areas, deep lake, it doesn't matter. And the different things that they have to do, whether it be barrier material or taking mechanical removal or whatever they're going to do in order to manage that program. So that's all gonna happen next. Right now, all we're talking about is how we're going to do it.
We benefit from their experience. It's their way ahead of us. They've been through pretty much all the processes.
And for the smallest LMD, which Offutt Lake is, we look forward to that scientific study of the lake to give us the scientific data. So now we have a plan, but it's up to us to prioritize the plan. Because by budget, that's going to determine what we can do. Whether it's mechanical harvesting or education or meetings or guest speakers, whatever we want to do will be decided, like you guys, by your budget. We won't be able to do everything. So we'll have the data, we'll prioritize it and make it work with our budget.
And part of the SOPs also includes expectations around communications. And being sort of that proactive, getting on the board's calendar, sharing information about what has happened within the current year, but also looking as to what that work plan might be for the upcoming year as well.
And every,
It might even work for a quiet zone.
yeah, every LMD will
anything
have
into
every LMD will have a website too that will be very transparent. I know you're familiar with Black Lakes, should be familiar with Long Lakes too. And you know that there's a lot of information there and it's pertinent to that specific lake. Offutt Lake's already got one, Patterson Lake already has one too, so that their community members can go there and get all this information. So.
Okay, so you need thumbs up from us, Rob?
We'll pull together the AIS and
Thank you.
get that on the board agenda.
Thank you very much.
Okay, it is.
Thank you folks for all of your work on this. And Rob, especially, thank you very much.
I couldn't have done it without.
Rob, you've been really a pleasure to work with.
Okay, it is 3:07. Thank you for joining us today. We're adjourned.